To everyone who is joining us, I would like to extend a warm welcome to you wherever you are. My name is Esther Wang. I am the CEO of Joytingle Private Limited from Singapore. And here are some technical notes before we start our meeting. All attendees are on listen-only mode, and today's session is recorded. If you have any questions, please submit your questions at the bottom of the screen during the Q&A session. You can also raise your hand virtually to ask questions with the palm icon at the back of the screen, at the bottom of the screen. So we are joined today by Ms. Kirsten Black. She is a pediatric emergency department child life specialist. In the past 4 years, Ms. Black has worked with pediatric patients, adult patients, and their families in different clinical settings. She has presented internationally on how to support children through medical examinations, trauma, grief, and loss. She is also the president and executive board member for Florida Association of Child Life Professionals Incorporated. Ms. Black is a certified child life specialist since 2011 and holds a master's degree in child life and an undergraduate degree in children and family development. So I'd like to welcome Ms. Black, and I will be putting her onto the screen. Hi, Kirsten.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So we are joined today by a few participants across 4 countries from the Philippines, Myanmar, New Zealand, USA, and Singapore.
Yay!
So I'm glad to have you with us. And how's it been for you?
It's actually, I'm here in Melbourne, Florida, which is about an hour east of Orlando on the coast, very near the Space Center where we launch all the rockets. And so we're a county of about 500,000 people. So we haven't been as hard hit as like Miami or Orlando or Tampa, the bigger cities in Florida. So me being in the emergency room, I've actually not seen we aren't seeing a lot of kids that are seriously affected by COVID, and being in a pediatric emergency room, I've actually been, we don't like to use the word slow or quiet in the emergency room, but numbers have gone down. So actually, I've been helping out on the adult side, doing things like cleaning rooms and running patients, just because a lot of kids are not coming into our emergency room. There have been a lot of parents that are scared to have their kids doing things because they don't want to go to the emergency room right now. And we've seen a lot of, across the country, we've seen a lot of people just putting off care in general. So cardiac issues, appendix pain, everything kind of waiting until the last minute. So the numbers are down for what we're seeing because we're not a hotspot, but the acuity, the things that we're seeing, you know, they are coming in with the fractures, the stitches, or needing their appendix taken out right away kind of thing. So we're keeping busy, but not to the point of some of my colleagues in New York or California or New Orleans.
I see. So I'm sure it's a time where there's a lot of fear in children, even in adults, what more for children, right? Yeah. So Kirsten, you have worked with children and families in stressful situations. And during this COVID-19 lockdown, the World Economic Forum has estimated 1.5 million children are not in school. So with the continued school closures, parents are concerned about the effects on children's mental health. So what are the signs that children may give when they are feeling uncomfortable or anxious?
Yeah. So the emotions that all of us are feeling right now are really actually part of a grief response. We're grieving the loss of our normal lives, the places we used to go, like school or work for some people who've been put at home as non-essential workers, the plans that we had. I have vacations that are planned that aren't happening at the moment, and the connections with people physically as social creatures that we are. And then we also have that anxiety over the unknowns about our own health, the health of our loved ones, whether our basic needs are going to continue to be met with the economic impact of what's going on, and what information out there is the right thing to believe, because there's a lot of varying information. So children of all ages are experiencing that, as well as us as adults. And particularly the younger ones, they don't have the emotional capability or awareness or vocabulary to verbalize this to us. So what we see in children as responses to stress and anxiety are actually more physical and observable responses and behaviors. So we might see headaches, stomach aches, being extra clingy, changes in their appetite, whether eating more, stress eating, or eating less, trouble sleeping, nightmares, regression in developmental skills that they've attained. So bedwetting and potty accidents, or maybe thumb sucking, bringing in that special loving stuffed animal that they used to carry all the time, or the binky that they got rid of, you know, the pacifier. Now they're having that back again. An increase in irritability, whining, the temper tantrums. Those a lot of times are just responses to, I have all these big emotions that are making my body feel a certain way, but I don't know what to do with them. So it comes out in the physical ways.
Right. So in the event that a child have to go through a nose swab, how can we actually explain it to a child?
So my way of explaining it to a child, particularly like my preschool age children, my school age children, is to get a little fun and playful with it. So what I do is I like to be honest and tell them where the swab is going, but be gentle in the language that I use, but still very descriptive. So I have them wiggle their nose at the bottom where it's soft, and then I have them move their fingers up to the bridge of the nose where it's harder, and I call that their nose cave. And I tell them, you know, things like to hide in caves. And we talk about like stories, fairy tales, what hides in caves. I ask them questions like that. Then I ask them, what do you think is hiding in your nose cave? And some kids will say, you know, boogers, snot, gross things like that. And I tell them that germs that make us sick, whether it was the flu germ before coronavirus became a thing and now coronavirus, it likes to hide in the cave, in our boogers, in our snot, way up high. So the nurse is going to need to use a tiny Q-tip and get some of your boogers and snot from way up high in your cave in order to send it to our scientists in the laboratory to see under the microscope if that's what's making you feel sick right now. So this way they know why it's up here. They know the swab is going up high. And then I tell them when we touch our nose up here, it kind of makes our eyes water. It might make our eyes cry. And the same thing with the Q-tip. If it goes up high, you might cry, and that's okay. So they're prepared for the eye water that tends to happen with a nasopharyngeal swab. And then I tell them tips that they can do. They can sit in mom or dad's lap, or they can have them hold their hand. For the little kids, I always advocate for them sitting with the parent's chest to the child's back and the arms over to kind of hold their arms down so they don't reflexively reach for the swab. The older kids, I tell them the things that you can do are to close your eyes so you don't see the swab coming at you. It's scary to have something coming, and if you're scared, you can close your eyes. And it's easier for the nurse to get into your nose and see where they're going in the cave because it's dark and hidden if you lean back and let them have a straighter shot. And then I tell them when they open their eyes, we'll have a big surprise. And I have just got a new one last night, bubble wands. So we can't blow bubbles. Bubbles is a universal child life tool. We blow bubbles all the time to introduce ourselves and to promote breathing. But right now we're not able to blow bubbles through masks, and we're not trying to encourage breathing of germs around, but bubble wands are still okay. So I will have a bubble wand and bubbles for kids to look at, or a light spinner or something fun for them as a prize, as a reward. And it usually distracts them enough that they kind of reset to their baseline in 30 seconds, a minute at most. So, you know, I let them know everything that's happening, but in a gentle way and without putting in any, you know, serious, harsh, scary words. Like I don't tell them it's going to pinch or sting or burn or any of those sensations, but I do say things like ouchie. So.
Yeah, so you manage the children's expectation by first telling them that it may be uncomfortable. Right. And because it goes all the way up our nose mountain into this tiny cave, so it's very near the eyes, it can be uncomfortable. But you've also mentioned yesterday that children should learn to lean backward so that the nurse can look right into their nose cave.
Yes.
And we manage their feelings by telling them it's okay if it's uncomfortable. And towards the end, you would actually cheer them up by giving them a sweet or a bubble wand.
Yes, yes.
Right. So, so in the event, let me ask another question. So In the scenario where children are anxious,
Mhm.
right? Like be it during this period of lockdown, when they're not able to go to school, or even when they're going for a medical examination to see a doctor. So how can caregivers or adults around them support children when they're feeling anxious?
Well, we need to help them recognize that these emotions that they're having are, these physical things that they're having happen or that they're feeling are actually responses to their emotions, and help them give that emotional vocabulary and that emotional awareness. And we need to model our own positive coping skills and our own emotional expression. So being able to share and have that communal response is important. So providing opportunities for them to talk about it, being empathetic and recognizing a behavior. Honey, I noticed that you've been crawling into mommy's bed because you're scared at night a lot. Can we talk about what's going on? Are you scared about things out in the world? Asking an open-ended question, but tying the behavior that we're observing to an emotion. And it's okay if the kid says, that's not how I'm feeling. We as adults have that happen all the time. A friend can say, oh, it sounds like you're really mad. And maybe I'm not mad. Maybe I'm sad. Maybe I'm frustrated. They're different responses. So we wanted to be open-ended, but maybe tie some verbal language to what we're seeing and see if that helps that child begin to say, yes, that sounds about right, what I'm feeling. Let's talk about it. One of the things that we can do is to help them visualize what's in their control, because safety and security is so important to children. So one of my favorite activities is to take a piece of paper. It could be a big piece of butcher paper, it can be a little piece of paper, and either place a large circle or place a hand in the middle of it, and have them inside the circle or the hand write the things that they can control. What are the things that they can do to control what's happening in their lives, in their home, and in the world? And then on the outside is everything that's out of their control. What happens at the store? How much toilet paper is left? Whether or not something is going to reopen or not is outside of their control. And then we focus back on the inside. That's skills-based, that's strength-based. So let's focus on what we have and continue to improve those things or work on those things and bring that back. For kids that are really frustrated and angry about the things out of their control, then we can add to it. We can tear those things up and we can be physical with it, or we can shoot water at it or paint guns at it or something like that. But we want to make sure that we are focusing on what we can do, and we'll try to physically let go of what we cannot do. The other thing, like I said, is, control and what's in our control, but also structure and routine. Structure and routine help children to feel safe and secure. And there's a lot of ways that things are unstructured. We have parents who are working from home, but they're also trying to homeschool their child, and we're losing our normal routine. We're not getting up in the morning, having breakfast, dropping them off at school, going on to work. But make sure the kids still have a routine. Make sure the kids still have a structure, and you can involve them in creating that routine or creating that space that is their dedicated schoolwork space, to again give them an opportunity for choice, for control, give them some participation in it, but stick to those routines, and then create new routines. So things are different. So here's a natural, perfect time to create a new family ritual. Let's take an evening walk after dinner and look for those rainbows in the windows around the neighborhood, or look for the teddy bear hunts, and or chalk the sidewalk every week, or something like that. That is a new family ritual, but again, it's something that they can rely on. And when we have reliability and we have a routine, it helps children to feel safe and secure.
It's very nice. Giving children the continued structure so they give them a sense of security. That's very nice. So we also know that during this period of time, play is always a necessary part of children's development. But in this period of a soft lockdown, when schools are closed, kids do not have as much play interaction with their peers. How can the parents actually continue to support the children's physical development?
Yeah, play is vital to a child's development. It's how they learn, it's how they make sense of the world, it's how they work through their emotions. And the shelter-in-place orders, closing of schools or camps, organized sports have really impacted and limited what are our typical or go-to opportunities for children to play. But there's still many, many other ways that children can play. I use Pinterest all the time as my child life resource manual, because there are a ton of things that are shared on Pinterest that either we can use directly as they are, or child life specialists or parents or teachers can adapt based on what we see out of that activity to be. But if you could, as a parent or a caregiver, just search Pinterest for homeschool activities. Look for things that say keeping kids engaged during the summer. And there's ideas for creating a routine of things to do during the summer that promote play, that promote getting outdoors, that promote sensory exploration, and just have fun on Pinterest. It's probably the best resource out there without having to search through Google. It gives you the pictures, it gives you a simple description, and it pulls you right in, and it's easy to click links and find what you're looking for. If you're limited because you live, like I live in an apartment and I have a beautiful outdoor space out in front of me, but I might not have had that space available to me in a different setting. If you live in an urban setting, you might not be able to get out and connect with nature as easily, or there may be somebody in your family that is sick, and so you're all staying inside and sheltering and really self-quarantining for a while. Then you need to search for things in a different way. So maybe rainy day activities that you can do with your child, board games, card games. And actually, as a child life specialist, I use games as a tool to start that conversation with children. So having a game like Candyland, it already has the colored spaces on the board, and assigning a color that can be dedicated to a topic or a discussion question, or whatever it is that you want to do. It could be an action. We're going to do something silly, or we're going to sing a song when we land on blue, or so you can make it up as you go, or you can find these resources on the internet, and Esther, I'll provide you a list with a lot of different links to help parents get that search started. Uno cards, if you're playing with older kids, or Jenga, you can take simple pens and mark a dot on the Jenga, so when you pull the orange one out, we're going to talk about things we can do in our control. So we're playing, we're modeling, we're connecting as a family, or we're connecting. And some of these games you can even play over Zoom and connect with people outside. And arts and crafts are another way of play. They're creative expression. Arts and crafts are a way to put into tangible things that we're feeling inside that we might not have the words to verbalize as a small child, or even as adult, we just don't want to verbalize. So artists write songs, they create plays, they write novels based on their feelings, but it doesn't have to be personal because we're putting it out in the world somewhere else. So making sure that we give children an opportunity for freedom, expressive activities, and freedom for choice of colors, the choice of the medium they want to use. And again, arts and crafts are another great way to check in with your kids and find out what's going on. Ask an open-ended question, because we don't want to make an assumption that that crazy bunch of dark scribbles is anger or fear or worry. It could be, I'm so excited that I get to have a Zoom class call today and see my friends. So we want to make sure we're not putting our own emotions into how we're perceiving it. We want to ask open-ended questions. Tell me about your picture you drew. Tell me about this monster you created, if they said they created a monster. What kind of monster is it? What is it? And that'll help them to have the conversation and the feelings start to be verbalized.
Great, that's very good sharing. And I really like about the games and how you have it as long as there's different colors, like you mentioned Uno Stacko as well. And each color represents an emotion. So you can actually use games to draw out important topics in a non-threatening way.
Yeah.
So Kirsten, we have also spoken about for children of healthcare professionals, like children whose parents are doctors, nurses, or even patients who are actually currently in the hospital, right? Mm-hmm. So for these children, how should we actually support them, or how can we help them?
So again, I think it's very important to reassure them what is happening. We're using honest language, but developmentally appropriate language. So if you are a caregiver of a child and you are also a healthcare worker or an essential worker in the grocery store or somewhere else, where children are hearing the message that we are staying at home to stay safe and avoid germs, but then mommy or daddy is going into the fire, basically, it's a reassurance of, this is mommy's protective gear. These are the things. Let them see you in your PPE. Let them hear what the things are that are helping keep you safe. Let them know what is being done, and remind them, just like we do when we go home to the store, or when we're at home, we're washing our hands, we are wearing our mask, we're doing these things to be safe, so that they are reassured that you are taking the steps as well, and creating those rituals. So maybe there's a special ritual that you can do. Maybe there's a secret code, I love you, that only you share, or there's a silly dance that you do if you're actually, some of our caregivers are self-isolated and not actually living in the same home as their children. So maybe it's a video call, and maybe it's a crazy dance that you do every morning or every night, but having a routine to stay checked in and connected and reassuring them. And another thing that's important is giving them that tangible connection. When children are younger, they don't have an abstract mind, so they can't really talk about the love. It has to be things that are tangible. That's why they have stuffed animals that are secure and other things that are important. So I like to use bibliotherapy, which is just books that are explaining a concept to a child and letting them feel connected to the characters in the story. So the invisible string is one that we use for all sorts of separation, whether it's separation in the hospital, separation from a parent due to a divorce or a move from friends, or even death. And it's a simple story about two children that were scared to go to sleep because of the thunderstorm. And mom talks about this invisible string of love that connects everybody. So even when they're in the room trying to sleep through the thunderstorm, mom is outside connected to them through their string of love. And I take that and make it a tangible thing. I ask the kids to pick a bead that represents themselves and then represents the person they love, or represents things about themselves, their favorite colors, their favorite holiday, their favorite sports team, their favorite activity to do with their loved one. And we make matching bracelets, and we will leave those bracelets on through the time of separation. I've done it for the, again, separation in the hospital, brother or sisters in a cancer treatment, they're going to be in for 30 days isolated while they're doing chemotherapy. Everybody's wearing the matching bracelet still, so we're connected tangibly to what's happening. The Kissing Hand is another common book that parents and teachers use when kids are starting school, because going to school for the first time is anxious and separating from their routine in their home and going into the unknown. And there are a lot of activities out there on Pinterest for the Kissing Hand too, that can take the book, take the feelings that are in there, translate it a little bit to what's happening with coronavirus, and then have an activity and a ritual that visualizes that love and that connection that stays even if we are physically apart.
So yesterday we also spoke about having the ECG. Remember the ECG printout? Do you want to...
the EKG printouts, yeah. So one of the things that's happening now, looking at separation, and then also my prior experience as a child life specialist working in hospice and bereavement settings, is that children also need that connection to their loved ones in end of life situations and very stressful situations. And EKGs are things that can be printed out at a nurse's station. They don't have to be coming from the patient's room. And there's been a lot of concerns these days about what can come in and out of a patient's room. So the things that we used to do, like handprint making with clay or paint or ink, may or may not be something that is approved by hospitals. But some very creative child life specialists that I'm proud to be a part of the team on, and the network of, took the EKG printouts, and they actually, some of us have done it just where we put them in a vial or we just give it to the families. Somebody did a really creative way to embed it in resin hearts. So resin is a great way to preserve things, keep things encapsulated in a hard plastic, so the germs have stayed inside there, but it gives them that tangible representation that there's a heartbeat for their person. And it can be something that, again, remains even if the outcome is not so good.
So we also spoke about, we also spoke about the reality that COVID-19 has claimed some lives. Mm-hmm. So death is a topic that everybody, be it from adults to children, have to actually talk about. Yeah. So how should we actually broach this topic with kids who may not understand that their grandparents or some loved ones may have passed on?
Again, it's honesty, and asking what children know first. I think it's important that we don't assume that they know what death means or that they have all the answers. They may have very wide misconceptions or very wide understanding of it. So really the way that I talk to children about everything in the hospital, in hospice, is to just say, well, what do you know about this? Tell me what you know. Tell me what you've heard. What does that mean to you? And when we get that information back, then we can then address any misconceptions. We can use very simple words, but realistic words. We want to use the words died. We want to use the words death. We want to use the words dying. And we want to say what that means in very simple, concrete language. It means the body stopped working. the body, the physical part of the body, is the thing that no longer works or is very sick and is having a hard time working, and the doctors or nurses are doing everything they can, but sometimes that medicine is not enough. Sometimes the virus is too strong and that body was not strong enough. The body, not the person, but the body. And that way it's separated from, like, they as a person weren't strong enough. Their body was weak. Their body was tired. And then when the body stops working, it's only the physical things, the ability to see, the ability to talk, the ability to hear, but the ability to, you know, feel. But at the same time, the love, that thing that is very abstract, is something that we create those tangible linking objects. And we have that heartbeat. That heartbeat was where the love was. Now they have that physical representation of heart and love from a physical body, biological, to the abstract emotional, and they can carry that love in their pocket or around their neck. They can have a handprint that says, this is the hand that held my hand when I was scared, and now I can always go put my hand up on that hand. So being able to take it, that abstract, tie it to something tangible for the child to allow them to stay linked and connected, but be very honest. We don't want to use abstract words. We don't want to say things like they passed on or they went away, because kids don't understand what that means, and they will come back and they will keep asking again and again. But when we keep repeating what happens with death, then they're not necessarily scared or confused, and it will help, again, bring them back to what's within their control. I can control these things. I know they're not coming back. I'm not going to be anxious and looking for grandma to keep coming back, because it's not happening.
Thank you for your sharing. So I'm mindful of our time, and now I would open the floor for any Q&A. Let's just check. Okay, while we are waiting for anyone to ask questions, I have another question to ask. In the event that, let's say, the child is feeling unwell, and I know we spoke about broaching the topic of death and of loved ones who may be separated, and there can be separation anxiety, which is why we need a tangible for kids to express themselves. I have a point where, what if the parents find it really hard to start on this topic? Could it be helpful if we actually use the child's favorite toy as a proxy instead? And ask the parent?
Yeah. Play is so symbolic for children that it is a lot of times easier, even in, you know, the hospital setting. A lot of times we will use the stuffed animal as the model to get the splint. This, you know, this stuffed animal is going to need medicine in their body. Let's put the straw in this stuffed animal's arm, and then you can do it too. So sometimes we will model it on a stuffed animal or a favorite toy. And another thing that's come up that a lot of parents are not as familiar with, but us as child life specialists know, is that you're going to see themes in play in your children, because this is how they process. And we're seeing our children more because they're at home all the time. We might see children acting out death scenarios. We might see children talking about things that we wouldn't normally see, but that's just normal for them. I've seen it in children who've experienced a death or a loss. They'll bury toys in the sand over and over. That's them recreating the funeral, but that's okay. It's just them making sense of it and doing it until it becomes comfortable for them. It's just them, you know, going through the motions. I've seen children recreate CPR. I've seen children go back to the hospital bed at the grief center over and over until they felt like we've done everything we could. So just like the doctors did everything they could to save mommy. And for somebody who's not trained in this, somebody who's not working with this, it's a shock to see your child playing death. It's a shock to see somebody acting out something. I had a Facebook group that I'm in. Somebody said, look, my daughter put her Barbie dolls in masks. Oh my gosh, what is this doing to my child? And I said, it's teaching your child that this is safe and secure, and your child is now making sure her favorite things are also safe and secure. It's not a bad thing that they're doing that. It's actually a good thing that she's processing this way. So I think it's important for parents to recognize that in their play as well.
Okay, that's great. So now let's see if there's any questions. Okay, so one question I received from the Philippines is, you have earlier pointed and you have earlier alluded to having different colors as during the playtime, and you also spoke about art and craft. So can we actually use colors to represent different emotions and ask children to paint that out during the session? So this question came from the Philippines.
Absolutely. So what I do is I'll let the child assign the color. So, you know, they can choose what makes them, what color to you is happy, what color to you is sad, what color to you is worried or anxious, what color to you is angry. And whatever color they choose, they make their color key. And there's lots of like blank things that are out there, like fill in the heart of how you're feeling or color the circle today. It could be that you do a color by number sort of scenario, and for every, you know, one of those ones where you fill it in, and they can choose one of those coloring pages and make it the pattern fit how they're feeling, a mandala or one of those, you know, more complex ones. So absolutely, but again, give them the choice to do it. We don't want to say that red is an angry color, because red could be love. Red could be happy because it reminds me of strawberries because they're my favorite fruit. We don't want to assume that that's the color. Now, when we're doing that for ourselves, and absolutely, we should be doing these same things for ourselves as caregivers, as professionals, you know, as adults, we forget to play. We stop playing. We stop doing arts and crafts, and we need that outlet too. We need that ability to do it. So we don't want to assign that color to the child, but we also want to remember to do these things ourselves. So while they're doing it, we can do it too, and we can share, because then we've modeled for them and we've kept that discussion going.
Okay, so thank you, Kirsten. And we have no other questions. So I think that can conclude our session for today.
Okay.
All right.
I will send you the list so you can, I don't know how you want to share the links of, you know, Pinterest, some of the activities I talked about. I'll send direct links to that, the graphic that I shared with the in and outside control. Some of those things I think are very useful, a couple articles on play and and some links on how to talk to kids and support kids. So I'll send you the list of resources and you can distribute it to the attendees or place it on the website or something yourself. So
I just received one question.
Okay.
Okay, and this question is from a parent, and he is asking, how can they explain to the child that they can't go out and play?
So we're talking about how the germ is transmitted. So we want to talk about the transmission and going outside. You can spread the germ even with masks. We're still, you know, at risk, but we're at a smaller risk. So by keeping ourselves inside, you know, the playground is why we can't go outside and play, because they don't clean the playground off, and our hands and our mouths and the germs are on there. But going outside to play in your front yard is okay. So we have to tie it to, it's not, we can't go play at all, but we maybe can't go to the playground, or we cannot participate in sports with our friends because of the way that the germ, the virus, the things that make us sick is transmitted. So if we focus on what the child knows about the germ, explain transmission, and then say, we are doing these things so that we are not getting sick, but then flip it. What can we do? We might not be able to go to our favorite playground anymore, but what else can we do instead? And make sure that, again, involve them in that brainstorming, involve them in that making a plan. And talk about ways we can do it in a different way. We might not be able to go see grandma and grandpa, but we can talk to grandma and grandpa on the phone. We might not be able to go with our friends, but can we do things to stay connected? Can we video with our friends? Can we play an online game with our friends?
Right. Thank you for sharing, Kirsten. I think it's a very insightful sessions. My favorite is when you talk about the nose cave and germs there. And I really like your practical tips on how we can use games to start very serious conversation on anxieties and emotions, but in a very non-threatening way. Yeah. So on behalf of everyone, I would like to thank you for your time. And I would also like to thank the participants for joining us for today's session. And this video is recorded, and together with Kirsten's resources, it will be made available on Joytingle's Facebook and YouTube.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you all for your time.
Thank you. I'm happy to do it. Stay safe, everyone.
Okay, bye.
Bye.